Tyson came for a fight and left with a bite. This wasn't just a boxing match, it was absolute chaos, complete with blood, fighting and a riot inside the arena. Yes, there were gunshots, yes, there were switchblades, and yes, this all happened on pay-per-view. In the bite fight, George Willis uncovers what really happened in Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield's rematch. In this video, I'll study the main themes in the book and give you some insight you can really sink your teeth into. In 1997, Mike Tyson plummeted new depths when he bit Evander Holyfield on the ear, earning a disqualification and sparking pandemonium in the MGM Grand Garden Arena. The fight was so anticipated it caused George Willis to describe the build-up to a heavyweight bout as an orgasmic experience. Whoa, let's just rewind a second. An orgasmic experience? Mate, what fights are you watching? But back to the boxing. Iron Mike was furious when he and Holyfield clashed heads repeatedly in the ring. Having watched the rematch many times, I feel this was just a case of Holyfield standing his ground when Tyson came in. So for once, Tyson just couldn't play the bully. He was then enraged when his accusations of headbutts were ignored by the referee, Mills Lane. In the third round, they lock arms and Tyson affectionately nuzzles into Holyfield's shoulder. But then Tyson thinks, stuff this, and takes a big old chunk out of Holyfield's ear. The image of Holyfield pointing at his ear and just skipping around like he's barefoot on hot coals will definitely stay with me. It's one of the most mental things I've ever seen in sport. But that wasn't the end of the antics for Tyson. Lane deducted 2 points from the aggressor, one for the bite and one for a shove on his opponent straight afterwards. After the doctor cleared Holyfield to continue, would you believe Tyson takes a second bite out of the ear? When Lane disqualifies him, Tyson explodes with abandon. He punches a policeman, he tries to attack Holyfield, and then Don Turner, Holyfield's trainer, actually takes out a switchblade to try and protect himself. Police enter the scene as the ring just becomes crammed with flailing limbs. Tyson is then pelted with beers from the Las Vegas crowd, who just watched police separate the boxers and herd them out through separate exits. In the end, the baddest man on the planet had his boxing license revoked for 14 months. He sure bit off more than he could chew with Holyfield. Indeed, he was always at a psychological disadvantage. In the early 1980s, rumour had it that Holyfield got the better of their sparring. Holyfield said, "I kicked his ass." Meanwhile, around the time of the American Olympic trials for the '84 Olympics, the pair actually squared up to each other and confronted each other over the use of a pool table. Tellingly, Evander stood firm while Mike slithered away. Maybe Holyfield got that never say die attitude from his mother. A really interesting part of the book is where Holyfield's mother tells her young son, "Never show you're hurt, never show you're scared." And I think that could have maybe led to Holyfield's remarkable mental fortitude that he showed throughout his career. With Kid Dynamite missing out on the 1984 Olympics, Holyfield went to the tournament and became one of the most popular fighters in America. He got to the semi-finals, only losing via disqualification because of a low blow. When his opponent Kevin Barry couldn't continue to the final, the Yugoslav referee picked another Yugoslav boxer to take his place in the final. Well, isn't that just fantastic? Still, the real deal went on to thrive in the pros. He won the WBA, IBF and WBC cruiserweight titles, eventually moving up to heavyweight in 1988 to take apart James Quick Tillis. By then, Tyson was already the youngest world heavyweight champion of all time. Because of this, I think they should have just been fast-tracked to fight each other in maybe 1989 or 1990. By the time Holyfield won their first match together in 1996, Tyson had already been to jail on conviction of raping Desiree Washington. His commitment had waned, and once the rematch came about, the Brooklyn man really was a spent force. So in the hours after Mike had his one-ear meal, Las Vegas just descended into absolute mayhem. Fans brawled up and down the aisles. Police and hotel staff at the MGM Grand Garden Arena wrestled with them, trying to quell the violence. People rushed to the exits, which caused almost a a bottleneck effect as people tried to kind of just cram through the exits and get out. This led to people fainting and even being trampled on. I did appreciate this part of the book because Willis really paints such a vivid picture of the trouble that happened afterwards. I've also read quite a lot in the past about the ominous atmosphere that you might get at a Mike Tyson fight, especially because of the kind of gangsters and the gunmen who might be in the crowd. Ron Borges of the Boston Globe described the scene as something which got unmanageable pretty quickly. That was putting it mildly. Gunshots were heard at the casinos as people dived for cover. Hooligans overturned casino tables and stole 200 grand's worth of chips. Among the looters apparently was an NBA Hall of Famer. So let's do a bit of homework. Let's try and think of an NBA Hall of Famer from the 1990s who was a little bit of a maverick. Answers on a postcard, please. Also, the Las Vegas economy really depended on the kind of financial output which they get from the big Tyson fights. So all the restaurants and the casinos and the pubs and the bars had to close early because of the disorder. So it's just an absolute nightmare for the MGM Grand Garden Arena. The grim aftermath was also felt by Mitch, a cleaner at the venue, who found a piece of Holyfield's ear in the ring after the fight. Although he later appeared on Letterman to talk about handing Holyfield his gift-wrapped cartilage, he was just so traumatised by the event that, although he was just an absolute boxing nut and he loved the game, he actually never returned to boxing after this event. Two more pivotal figures were Mitch Halpern, who refereed the first bout, and Halpern's mentor, Mills Lane, who refereed the second bout. We learn about the gloom that shrouded Halpern, who later shot himself dead in 2000. Tyson's team protested when Halpern was initially confirmed as the referee for the rematch. In the first meeting, Halpern basically just ignored Tyson's accusations that Holyfield was headbutting him. Although the Nevada State Athletic Commission voted 4-1 to keep Halpern as the referee for the second fight, in the end, Halpern pulled out of the fight on the Friday night, so the day before the event, and eventually Mills Lane took over. I loved Willis's summaries of Halpern and Lane's lives. He writes about how Halpern was refereeing when Jimmy Garcia tragically lost his life after his fight with Gabriel Ruelas. Halpern is steadfast in defending his performance that night, so he seemed like quite a self-assured character. He had a reputation in boxing for being very calm and measured. You wonder what his motives were for ending his life. He left behind a fiancée and also a 4-year-old daughter. So was Halpern simply putting on a brave face all this time? Did he have any other troubles that we don't know about? It's just another added storyline which adds such a level of intrigue to what is already just a crazy event. On that note, I thought this was definitely a worthwhile book just because of how big an event Holyfield Tyson 2 was. It was probably one of the last times that Tyson was really taken seriously in America as a heavyweight force. Plus, as a kid, I can just remember seeing this all over the news at the time. And as well as the likes of Prince Naseem Hamed and Frank Bruno, this event is probably my very, very first memory of hearing about boxing. This was well before the internet was easily accessible, so just shows you how far and wide the event reached. In fact, even Luis Suarez has performed his own tribute to the event quite a few times actually. But I will say that because I've read quite a lot about Mike Tyson in the 90s, I felt like the book did go over quite a lot of old ground. The stories about Tyson and Cus D'Amato, Tyson and Don King. Although they're interesting stories, I just wasn't really that engaged just because I've already read quite a lot about that in the past. I'd say probably a similar, better book is The Last Great Fight by Joe Layden, which covers Tyson's just seismic 1990 upset to Buster Douglas in Japan. The Last Great Fight is a bit more of an intimate look and also goes a little bit further into the training of the protagonists as well. It really throws you into the event as opposed to Bite Fight, which I think is more of a bit of a whistle-stop tour of what happened. But that said, it's probably a solid 3 out of 5 for me. It's also a pretty quick and easy read too. If you're a casual boxing fan and haven't read too much about Tyson, you're going to have a hell of a time reading this. So finally, don't forget to check out my playlist of reviews of books about boxing. Thanks so much again for watching, and see you soon.